What's the most badass thing you've accidentally said in the heat of the moment? At work, project management undercut and mismanaged a project so badly. They pushed getting minimum viable product out with the goal to roll out improvements later. Product released. They all patted themselves on the back and moved on. Then that minimum viable product broke. In a meeting we had with our directors about how it's so broken and the cost to fix it, etc. No cost too big, unlimited manpower, etc. I asked, how come we couldn't afford to do it right, but we can afford to do it twice? I'll never forget the moment a family walked into the local pub I was working at while I was working. This big king of the grill, bald alpha patriarch dad type, and his wife and kids came through. I said, "Welcome, where would you like to sit?" And he snapped back, "Well, a table would be nice." And without missing a beat at all I replied, "Actually, we usually sit on the chairs here." I'll never forget the satisfaction of that moment or the look on his face. Haha. I worked in cell phone sales for a few years and a woman came in with a fairly new flip phone. This was 2018, we just still sold them. She was complaining cause one of the sides of the screen was dangling off and said she didn't do anything, it just snapped. And demanded a new phone. I told her, "That looks like physical damage and we don't have any coverage for that since you didn't buy a phone protection warranty." She insisted it wasn't physical damage and the phone just sucks and broke itself. She started freaking out and calling me all kinds of names and swinging her phone in my face, and then the top half of the phone literally snapped off and landed on the counter in front of me. I just looked her in the eyes and said, "Well, that was definitely physical damage." She lost her crap at my comment and it was weirdly satisfying. I didn't realize the nature of my comment when I wrote it. But in high school, one of my teachers did end-of-the-year anonymous evaluations. Everyone hated him, and I understood why, but I still did well in his class. I wrote, "I don't have any critiques about your teaching, but I think you should work on being a better person." When I was 12, my older sister had a boy over for Thanksgiving dinner. She dated lots of douches. But this guy took the cake. Big, brash, annoying dong head who was rude to her and basically everyone. As we sat down for dinner, before we were about to say what we were thankful for, he says inaudible moron grunts. Looks like I'm seated at the head of the table. Must be important. With a huge crap-eating grin. Without pausing I gesture to my dad seated opposite Haim and said, "Actually my dad is at the head of the table. You're the asshole." My mom scolded me for swearing at the table but years later told me her and my dad thought it was hilarious. Forensic biology professor brings out a fresh human brain as a surprise to a stunned class. "You have no idea what I had to go through to get this. The skull." I was around 17 or 18 and getting my first filling at the dentist. They pumped me up with nitrous oxide for pain and to help me relax during the procedure. Dentist came back and asked me, "How are you feeling?" All I said was, "I don't," and he lost his crap and cracked up for what seemed like 20 minutes before he could pull himself together. I also started cracking up because of the laughing gas and his laugh was infectious. So we were both just sitting in the room laughing and all his assistants came by and were very confused. Lol. I worked at Target back in college in a stocking job where we had to be there at like 4 to 5 a.m. to unload trucks. One morning I overslept a bit and walked to the unpacking line about 10 minutes late eating a breakfast bar. The boss stormed over and started loudly berating me in front of everyone for being late. As he was going on, I was listening and taking bites of the bar without much expression. Mainly because I was so damn tired. It finally bothered Haim that I was disrespectfully chewing during the yelling and he stopped mid-sentence. Held out his hand, and said, "Give me that damn thing." It just happened that I only had one bite left so I took it. Handed Haim the wrapper, and said, "Thanks," with a mouthful of food. He paused and started laughing at the ridiculous response to his bing. We were buddies after that. After 4 years in an abusive relationship and 1 year of an abusive marriage, I told my ex that I wanted a divorce. He told he that I couldn't divorce Haim or I'd go to hell. My response was, "Well, I guess I'll see you there." I then kicked Haim out of my house, for which he had never paid a dime in bills, and told Haim to call his mom for a plane ticket. Not the most badass story here, but it felt good. My uncles were being about my dad, so I walked into the conversation and told them it wasn't polite to talk about people behind their backs. My uncle turned to me and said I shouldn't interrupt when the men are speaking, and completely out of character I replied, I don't see any men in here. Boy did I get some crap that day, but that's how I knew I won that exchange. Young male, traveling with a bunch of other males. Border Patrol. We were being searched for drug smuggling. Border Patrol agent, you know I have the authority to cavity search you. Me, somehow without skipping a beat. Sure you might, but neither of us would enjoy it and you wouldn't find anything. Off the hook. No fingers in my butt. I already posted here, but I just thought of another story. There was this one extremely attractive girl in my COM 101 class in college. One day, for a project where we interviewed other students, I was partnered with her. We ended up not finishing our questions in class, so I asked her if I could meet her somewhere to finish interviewing her. She said yes. Fast forward to the next day. I meet her after her dance group finishes rehearsal. I knock through the last few questions, and the final one which I ask is, "What do you perceive the future to hold?" She replies, "I don't even know what I'm having for dinner tonight. I have no idea what the future holds." So I say, "Well, if you don't know what you're having for dinner, do you want to have dinner with me?" She laughed, said yes, and though we only hooked up that night, I still look back on that day as one of the best dating stories I've had yet. Me and my girlfriend at the time were having a discussion about her going back to school. She kept putting it off every semester, and one day she got angry at me trying to get her to actually go back. Not just talk about it. And she yelled, "Rome wasn't built in a day." And I responded, "Yeah, but it was built." And a decade later I still think of that. Edit. She did end up going back to school. Got her master's even. She's married now with twins. Just a real asshole. Working retail. A Karen once told me she hoped I die. I was so into work mode that I blankly responded, "I mean, we all die. That's not much of a threat." Maybe it was my lack of intimidation or blank stare, but that really shut her up. Big burly former Marine, mercenary from Iraq was back stateside. Huge freaking mountain of a man. We came to face each other in one of the narrow corridors of the office where one of us was gonna have to turn sideways. Neither of us turned, but we stopped. I'm 6'1", and he still towered over me. He was a nice guy, but still a little conditioned, I guess you could say, or mentally unhinged. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "You feeling froggy?" It truly was like something out of a movie. Without blinking I replied, "You better jump." We both cracked up and turned sideways, while the office breathed a collective sigh of relief. I was in an acting class in college, and we were doing a scene where a couple was having a big drawn-out fight. Multiple pairs went through the scene, and I studied it pretty hard, so I knew all the lines. We're about halfway through our performance when my partner clearly forgets what her line is. And because everyone was doing that scene, they could tell she had forgotten as well. Her next line was supposed to be, "Well, I'm sorry I asked. I'm not usually a quick thinker on my feet. But I just filled the second or two of awkward silence with, 'I bet you're sorry you asked. Ha,' and continued on with my lines. Not overly badass per se, but the class and professor loved it and all laughed. Probably the only quick-witted thing I've ever done in my life. We had a overly dramatic neighbor who always claimed she was sick and dying. My mom came to see my kids in the middle of battling stage 4 lung cancer. The neighbor pulled her. "Hi Rita, so glad to see you. Did Jason tell you that I am dying?" My mom looked right at her, smiled and said, "Me too, dear, but not today." Never more proud of her. A friend of mine was giving me crap while we were all bowling. Off the cuff I yelled at him, "You're adopted. Your parents don't even like you." He laughed, "Because you now friends." Like 3 hours later it hit me and I turned around and said, "Holy crap XX, you are adopted. I completely forgot. I'm so sorry dude," which he thought made the whole situation even funnier. Edit. A word. A long time ago I was walking down a side street in a medium-sized town with my girlfriend. A car was parked ahead, with the front of the car facing us as we approached. I could see 2 kids, maybe in their late teens, and instantly could tell they were likely going to say something as my GF was rather attractive. As soon as we come up next to them I hear, "Hey baby, ditch the zero and come hang with the hero." I could feel my blood boil but I kept my cool and calmly said, "Sorry buddy, I'm not gay, and don't call my girlfriend a zero." The dude's friend started laughing at him and my girlfriend made a sarcastic crying face, then we both started to laugh. I actually said nothing. I was on my motorcycle in traffic, on a wet overpass with short Jersey walls. Guy behind me was driving a bit too fast and slammed on his brakes, sliding into me. But no damage, as he was going slow enough to touch and push me about 5 feet before finally coming to a stop. The angle had me going straight forward, so I did not fall. Had it been much faster, I would have been thrown over the edge to my death. So obviously I was not happy. I turned off the engine, got off the bike and slowly walked over to the driver that hit me. It's only a few feet, and when he saw me coming to him, he furiously started raising his manual window, so I could just see him struggling to pump the winder. When I got there, I just knocked on his window, pointed at him, and turned around and walked away. He looked terrified. I didn't think about it until later. A guy you just hit in a car wearing a black helmet with shaded visor, black heavy thick jacket, black heavy riding pants, roadcrafter jacket and pants, black thick and metal studded gloves, and black leather boots knocks on your window and points at you for being a supreme dumbass. I had no idea. I just wanted to talk to him, be a bit angry, but tell him I was okay, then take a sec to verify my bike was okay as well. Got to work one morning. My chosen football team had thrashed my boss's chosen team. I gave him a load of crap for it. Humorously, of course. My boss is great. He gave me some crap back, and told me to do a stock take on all items we have beginning with the letter C. I pointed at him and said, 1. Luckily, he took it the correct way and laughed a lot.